Hey, welcome to Crossroads. Folks, the United States now has red flag laws. They're in place now, and these aim to restrict the possession of firearms. The congressional laws allow for guns to be confiscated from gun owners if a warning on the owner is issued to the authorities. The laws were announced by the Biden administration shortly after the $1.2 trillion spending bill that was passed to avoid a government shutdown. Now, Breitbart says this. It says, on Saturday, Vice President Kamala Harris spoke from Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School and announced $750 million being dedicated to securing more red flag laws. Because of all the things we need, maybe $750 million for this is what they deem most important, right? Further, it says the first announcement was that the Biden administration is creating a national extreme risk protection order resource center with funding it with $750 million. The second announcement was directed to state legislators, urging them to use federal money to secure red flag laws. In other words, they're creating a new government agency for this, like a new office for it, and they're also giving federal money for states to begin enforcing this. Here's more on it. Daily Wire said President Joe Biden's Department of Justice announced on Saturday the launch of the National Extreme Risk Protection Order Resource Center, to the surprise of some congressional Republicans. A lot of them are like, where'd this thing come from? And it's further in, the Resource Center, which was launched with the new website, is described as a resource for implementers that will provide training and technical assistance to law enforcement officials, prosecutors, attorneys, judges, clinicians, victim service and social service providers, community organizations, and behavioral health professionals responsible for implementing laws designed to keep guns out of the hands of people who pose a threat to themselves or others. Again, remember the basic nature of red flag laws is people can go to the court and say, hey, this friend of mine, this ex of mine, this person I know, I believe they're a threat to others and to themselves, and they own a firearm. And that can, of course, go to the court. If the court decides they want to go and take the person's firearms, they can then do it. And you just saw the amount of different agencies and different offices in different areas this is going to be giving money to for that massive effort. It notes now that the National ERPO, which is the acronym they're using for it, the resource center for this, it notes the website provides a state-by-state guide for red flag laws across the country, because again, gun laws change state by state, along with specific information on each state's ERPO law. And it's that currently 21 states in the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. have red flag laws already on the books. Now, let me show you the official announcement on it. This is from the Department of Justice, and this is what it says. ERPO laws, again, red flag laws, right? Which are modeled off domestic violence protective orders, create a civil process allowing law enforcement, family members in most states, and medical professionals or other groups in some states to petition a court to temporarily prohibit someone at risk of harming themselves or others from purchasing and possessing firearms for the duration of the order. Now, personally, I'd say that maybe illegal aliens trying to buy guns in this country, I would say that maybe set off some red flags. But you might remember an Obama judge, maybe in one of the first cases I've ever heard of, an Obama judge voting to allow people to own firearms, voted to allow illegal aliens to own firearms. Maybe it applies to them, right? Personally, I don't think this is about guns, though. I think it's about something else entirely. But further it notes, in 2023, the Justice Department's Office of Justice Programs, OJP, awarded $238 million to states, territories, and the District of Columbia under the Burns State Crisis Intervention Program, SCIP, which was created by the bipartisan Safer Communities Act and is designed to help jurisdictions implement crisis intervention strategies. A nice way of saying seize your guns, including ERPO programs. In addition, OJP awarded $4 million to support training and technical assistance under Burns SCIP, including $2 million that was awarded to the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Solution to establish the ERPO Resource Center. Briefly, again, the ERPO Resource Center is public-private. Johns Hopkins played a big role in that. And notes it further in that in collaboration with OJP's Bureau of Justice Assistance, BJA, the center will support states, local governments, law enforcement, prosecutors, attorneys, judges, clinicians, victim service providers, and behavioral health and other social service providers in their efforts to implement ERPO programs. And keep in mind, folks, that long list is all the different things it's giving money to begin enforcing these anti-gun laws. And now they're going to work on it to fit the local needs, share resources, and promising practices with the field, and help ensure that funding received through burn script is effectively utilized, because we know how effectively they utilize money, right? Now, I'll be going a bit more into how this whole thing will work after a quick word from our sponsor.
Experts agree. One of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges. With a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold, you can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment, a low price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.
All right, let me show you a bit more on how these red flag laws are actually going to work, right? This is from the agency's new official department. This is the ERPO official website, and it says this, right? The ERPO is, again, it's the acronym basically for this response center they've made on red flag laws. It says ERPOs temporarily prohibit a person from possessing or purchasing firearms. How do you prevent a person from possessing firearms while you seize their guns, right? And it says, and provide a process for the removal of firearms already in the person's possession. I don't think that's going to turn out very well when they try that, mind you. It says that the possession of a firearm is not required for an individual to be an ERPO respondent. An ERPO also temporarily prevents someone who is behaving dangerously or at risk of committing violence from purchasing and possessing firearms. It notes further in that even in states where ERPO is law, implementation varies within states and across states, signaling the need for close attention to implementation. Several jurisdictions have established specialized ERPO teams to handle ERPO petitions, service firearm dispossession. That's a nice way of putting it. How do you dispossess a firearm? Firearm dispossession. And the return of firearms, maybe in some instances, right? Now, given a bit further in, this is what it says as well. In every state with an ERPO law enforcement may petition the court to issue an ERPO to temporarily restrict an individual's access to firearms when they are behaving dangerously or when they are at an elevated risk of harm to self or others. How do they determine that? That's where it gets a bit tricky, right? They note that in most states, law enforcement are also responsible for serving the ERPO petition and removing the firearms from ERPO respondents' possession. Nice way of saying that they make law enforcement do the dirty work and the dangerous side. Notably, in a lot of states, the sheriffs have publicly stated that they will not enforce these kinds of laws. Even in some very left-wing states, including in some areas of California. It goes county by county when you're dealing with the sheriffs. But even in some very far-left areas, the sheriffs have publicly stated that they will not enforce these laws, their deputies will not carry them out, and that's said and done. Part of that is because in many areas they believe that the red flag laws are just plain old unconstitutional. They're violations of the Second Amendment of the Constitution. Others say that doing so, to go to people's homes and try to take away their guns, is a danger to law enforcement. They believe that it would be putting officers in harm's way, and so they refuse to do it for that reason. Because, it's one thing if you're enforcing a law that people might go along with, right? They might be more likely to, let's say, not fight back. But when you're dealing with constitutional matters, it does create a danger for law enforcement. And it's unfortunate, in my opinion, for law enforcement officers who go to people's homes who don't want to be enforcing these laws in the first place, but are being forced to by their superiors, lose your job otherwise. And so, again, it's complicated in that sense also. But regardless, they're making law enforcement do this. And notice that they're the ones, again, to dispossess people's firearms. So, they always come up with new phrases for this stuff, right? Now, in terms of how it works, this is also what they say. They say judges, magistrates, commissioners, and other judicial officers weigh the evidence, and we've seen how well they weigh evidence, like in New York and with Fannie Willis and other places. And they determine whether to grant or deny the petition for an ERPO. In other words, folks, it's going to depend on the political leanings of the judge or the whoever else is making the decision. In some states, again, where you're going to have more constitutional judges, they're going to be a lot more fair with it. In places where, frankly, you have people who just don't believe people should own guns in the first place, they're going to be a lot more loose with it. I can say on a personal level, I know of some cases where maybe somebody should not own guns. For example, I've had friends who are victims of domestic violence, and they have exes who lost their minds, literally. And the guys own firearms, and it does present a real threat to them. In instances like that, where there's a domestic violence victim who's afraid of a violent ex stalking them, maybe it is justified in such cases. But again, it all depends. It all goes down to the details of implementation. We'll see how it is. My other big concern about things like this, personally, is I don't think the people doing this actually care about gun violence, frankly. I think if they cared about gun violence, they'd make sure that illegal aliens cannot buy guns. I think if they cared about gun violence, they'd be going after MS-13 and Tren de Aragua in major cities. I think if they cared about gun violence, they'd be trying to stop the carjackings taking place across the United States, which mostly go unpunished because people just drive them to the nearest port, sell them off, and they get shipped off. Oftentimes it is people being held at gunpoint in that. I think if they cared about gun violence, they'd be doing a lot more to stop, for example, organized retail theft, where gangs are going in and robbing stores and putting people out of business, oftentimes with guns or other weapons in hand. I think if the individuals making these laws actually cared about the well-being of Americans, they'd be focusing on the things that are more directly damaging the well-being of Americans. But they're not doing that. Instead, they're going after, in this case, law-abiding American citizens. Because if you have a gun and it's registered, it's a legal firearm. And this is important too. Recently in New Jersey, for example, a lot of firearms owners will point at statistics on guns and be like, most of the problems with guns are not from legal ownership. A lot of it is from illegal guns. In fact, most of the numbers, unless you count suicides, and oftentimes suicides are what anti-gun advocates use to advocate for people not owning guns. They skew the numbers, and they include suicide by gun. Right now, in New Jersey, just case in point, there was a new study that came out and it showed that, it's a dashboard on carry permits released, right? People getting permits to carry guns. It shows that a massive increase in people getting the ability to carry guns in the state, in New Jersey, did not result in an increase in public shootings. And this goes against everything they tell us is, frankly, the facts, right? Bearing Arms says last week, New Jersey Attorney General Matthew Platkin released a permit to carry dashboard. It says the dashboard contains an aggregate of available and imputed data about permit applications in the Garden State, New Jersey. It shows denials, how many were issued, and contains demographic information. It notes this dashboard was created, or has created, quite a stir with different mainstream media and anti-gun groups. And why is that? Because they observed that there's a 3,000% increase in permit carry holders. That's significant. 3,000% increase in gun ownership. Now, if you would think all the numbers they're telling us, 3,000% increase in guns, you'd expect to see a 3,000% increase in gun crime. And frankly, that's not happening. It notes here the Chicken Littles saying that there's going to be blood in the streets are screaming from the rooftops, and not the rooftop Koreans we've come to love. It says, according to Colonel Patrick J. Callahan, the head of the New Jersey State Police, there's been no increase in public shootings. Now, again, if what we've been told about dangerous gun ownership, is actually true, we'd assume that a 3,000% gun increase, people having guns through legal permits, would mean a 3,000% increase in public shootings. It's almost like the problem is not being caused by legal gun owners, right? It's almost like it's being caused by something else entirely, because we have not seen an increase. If they say that something is causing a problem, and you raise that thing by 3,000%, you'd expect it to go downstream in the numbers, and it's not happening. There's no increase. And as all this happens, you have some crazy things happening in California, of course, right? A man was recorded eating a severed human leg in California. I'll be talking more about this, I'm not joking. That'll be only on Epoch TV, though, and also be going into how Congress is investigating the IRS, finally, for allegedly using an AI in violation of the Constitution. Normally, they need a permit if they're going to go search you. They're using AI to do it for them. So for those of you on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Twitter, make sure to click on the link in the description below to join us for the rest of the episode, including the live Q&A, where I'll be going into your questions and all the stuff you ask. Also, folks, we're seeing major infringements on American rights, if you haven't noticed. Red flag laws and so on. Now, a lot of this comes down to the Constitution no longer being respected. I don't think we need to rewrite the Constitution. I don't think we need to amend it. I think we just need to enforce it. And if people understood what the Constitution is and what it protects, we wouldn't have a lot of the problems we're facing. So what does it mean for Americans if the Constitution is lost, or if we just throw our hands up and say, you know what, we're not going to defend the Constitution anymore? I covered this issue in a special feature I did called America Rewritten. It's very important to watch. America Rewritten, this feature I did, explains what the Constitution is, what it covers, the story behind it, and also the attacks on it right now. It also covers an important debate, which is almost totally forgotten, on the difference between a democracy and a republic. Everybody should know the difference between a democracy and a republic. This is very important. Again, it's a special feature I did called America Rewritten. You can watch it right now on Epoch TV, EpochTV.com. Let me show you a trailer.
The American story was once seen as a light of strength and freedom for the world. It created a government by the people and for the people, where rights were given not by leaders, but by God. Yet now the very fabric of the nation is under assault. What is the real story of America? Why did the Founding Fathers choose a republic over a democracy? And what would the world be if the bedrock of the American Constitution was lost?
Welcome back. Let's talk about what's happening in California, right? They have their tough on